All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Red Rain episode 170. Please welcome in your host, Walter Mitchell.
Thank you, Kyle Little Rock Ledbetter. Sporting his Oakland A's hat. Of course, he does A's radio producing, and I'm excited about that because I'm an A's fan and have been since a the back in the day when the A's wore white spikes. I thought that was the coolest thing, and they also had one heck of a team. Reggie Jackson was a rookie. I was all going crazy. And then Joe Rudy was one of my idols. Catfish Hunter was my pitching idol. So, yeah. And so to see him clad in wearing the green and gold is a thrill for me. And watch out for my A's next year. They're building a little something in Sacktown, unfortunately, but maybe fortunately. We'll see what happens. And then he's got, per request, the University of Arizona, who has the number one ranked wide receiver in the 2025 draft, on his, wearing the sweatshirt, which led to a 4-game winning streak before. So, knock on wood, we're hoping for something similar as the Cardinals took care of business 30-17 against the Patriots at home. A lot of good highlights in that game, and some frustrations here and there. But I thought overall the defensive performance was fantastic for 3 quarters, and they were not giving the Patriots wide open receivers the way they were against the Seahawks and Vikings. So that was a nice change of pace, and hopefully we'll see it carry over down in Carolina. And the spirited play from the group and the turnovers were really nice. The goal line stand was fantastic, with Chris Barnes stepping into that hole and with a desert swarm around him to thwart that goal line drive that the Patriots were mounting in the third quarter. Which actually, if they score a touchdown there, it cuts the lead to 16-10 and makes things very nerve wracking. Instead, we get the turnover, and then the Cardinals put it away from there. So lots of good stuff there. Kyle and I are both beaming over yesterday's news. You want to post the Adam Schefter tweet, of Budda Baker getting his contract extension, 3 years, $54 million, with $30 million guaranteed. And it's the largest third contract for safety in NFL history, which Budda has certainly earned. But it was also, the 30 million showed that Budda was willing to work with the team. I was thinking it was going to take 35 mil, because that's the key figure, is the guarantee. But Seth Cox, our esteemed editor at Revenge of the Birds, nailed it. I was talking to him 2 or 3 days ago, and he thought 30 would do it, and sure enough, voila, we got Budda for 30 guaranteed, and I'm sure it's a contract chock full of attainable incentives for Budda, something he loves to aspire to. And this morning on Bickley and Murata, they texted out, "What do you like best about Budda Baker?" And what I wrote back was that Buddha is one of the rare Cardinals to sign a second contract. That didn't happen very often. But also, in a myriad of ways, produced at a level that earned every single cent he was given. And by the way, that he balls and plays his heart out and produces on the football field. I mean, he's a tackling machine, and it's the way he tackles that strikes fear in the hearts of ball carriers all around the NFL. Is that he's like a torpedo, and his pad level is just tremendous, and he gets underneath the pad level of the would-be ball carriers in ways that few NFL defenders ever have. So, really excited about that, Kyle. What was your reaction?
I was caught a bit off guard because you obviously have some inside knowledge now and again around the organization, and you can hear some whispers and things like that. But I was caught off guard by it because for the entire Monty Austin-Fort Jonathan Gannon regime, it seemed like we were headed towards Budda Baker was going to play out his contract without the guarantees. Last year, he kind of did the hold in type of thing to try and get that new contract extension. It didn't work. This offseason, he just reported to camp with it seemed like assumption he was going to play out this year with no guarantees and be on his way. And I talked during the offseason about like treating Ring of Honor players with a certain degree of respect is an important thing for any organization, where it's not all about getting a deal here or evaluating when a player is going to hit that ceiling when they reach a certain age and they just aren't going to give you that production anymore. Sometimes it's not worth it. I think back to what Detroit did with Matthew Stafford, where they actively took a lesser trade offer in order to send Matthew Stafford to the Rams instead of sending him to Carolina, where he didn't want to go. And I think back of Matthew Stafford is going to be, obviously his jersey is going to be retired by the Detroit Lions. And that level of respect you have for people on their way out the door who have been Ring of Honor players, or even in Buddha's case, potentially a jersey retirement kind of player for your organization is super important. And I'm just so thrilled for the reputation of the Cardinals and for the fan base that Budda Baker, someone who has been instrumental both in their on-field success and in terms of leadership and everything they're doing in the Monday through Saturday leading up to games and off-season programs and everything that we've heard about just how amazing of a person Budda Baker is. It's great to know that he's going to be around for the long run, because he's just been such an important part of this team for so many years. And so to see them, obviously it's a contract negotiation, and you could argue that he got lowballed by the organization and took a lesser offer, but for them to just even extend the olive branch after the ringing around they've done with him over the last 2 years, and talks of will they trade him, won't they trade him, will they sign him, won't they sign him, for it to get done this late into the season, to avoid a free agency, and for it to be the large contract the safety has ever signed, that was caught me off guard. And just I was so, not relieved is the right word, but just happy in a way that was unexpected when I heard the news, because it's easy to root for athletes. I try my best to just root for athletes and celebrate the great athlete. And when you have someone as great as him, who it makes it easy to celebrate, it just makes it all the better when good things happen for people like that.
Yeah, and his willingness to work with the club, I think, is speaks volumes. I mean, he could make the argument that no one has made more tackles in the NFL for the last 5 or 6 years than he has, playing at the safety position. He could have, taken that stance and made a feasible argument for it. I mean, he's like 145 tackles this year already. He's 7 off of his season all-time high with 3 games to go. I mean, he's been a key catalyst and leader for the team, and I think this is his football team now. His and James Conner. I think that they're the bell cows, and they set the tone. They set the culture, their work ethics, the way that they ball, their toughness. And we saw, so working with the club, he's now the fourth highest paid safety in the league, which he could have, held out and wanted to get paid as a one or two. I think that speaks volumes about his wanting to stay in Arizona, to take the leadership reins of this team forward with James Conner, and that's it was a really good contract for both sides, and it's so exciting to know he's going to be a Cardinal and could be a Cardinal for life. So.
Well, Walter, it's like you've been talking about for months here, and I've read your articles and you've articulated some of the same points, which is James Conner and Budda Baker both deserve extensions because they are the two most important players on the team. And wouldn't you know it, in the last 4 weeks, you've seen James Conner get an extension. You've now seen Budda Baker get an extension. This while a whole host of rookies and second-year players are playing minutes alongside them and snaps alongside them. It's tremendous that they committed to those two players deciding to come back when they very easily could have said, this is a youth movement, we're bringing in new leadership, new stars, and thank you for your time and everything that you've done. And it's tremendous that they've decided to keep that continuity together, which is a testament to, it seems like these guys actually like each other, and it seems like they're actually having fun playing football, and these two represent the captains and the leaders of that group.
They're cut from a similar cloth. They've been underdogs all their life. They play with a chip on their shoulder, and they are super tough, mentally, physically, and they both train like Larry Fitzgerald did. I mean, they, on the off season, they are, and like JJ Watt always did, they are in that mode. I think Trey McBride is right with him, and he's gonna get paid soon as well. He's a core guy. We could talk about core guys here. There's a few who are, it's interesting to see. I don't know if it's premature to talk about the Cardinals free agents right now. We can do a quick thing with it, but before we do that, I just want to point out that look at what the Giants did in the offseason. They gave up on Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. There's a running back safety tandem, and look at how it affected, the loss not only of the production on the field and the balling on the field, but in the locker room. It's and that's what you run the risk of. Now, Monty came from the Titans, and they're a similar story because you get rid of an AJ Brown, and you let Derrick Henry leave the building. What are you left with for leadership? And toughness. And when you have bell cows like that, it's hard to replace them. They're so invaluable, and you're also saying goodbye to part of your culture that got you to where, the Giants got to the playoffs a couple of years ago because of those guys, and the Titans were in the playoffs and knocking on the door a couple of years back. The direction of those franchises has taken a turn for the worse. So the fact that the Cardinals not only locked them up, but also locked up Hajalte Froholt as a core player, who's one of our most physical offensive linemen, who's been having a good year. He's leaking a little oil lately, but hoping for a big bounce back game from him against Carolina with their defensive front. So But let's just, for the fun of it, I'll come down the list. I'll say the name, and Kyle will say whether yay or nay, and we'll just put the asterisk, assuming that the money's fair and right for both sides. Okay.
Yeah, we'll make a distinction if not.
All right. So Buddha's done. Next on the list, and this goes by current salary, is Kaiser White. Yay or nay?
I would say yay on a 1-year deal just because of how important he's to Nick Rallis and the coaching staff.
Right. I mean, when you name a child after him, which I think is cool. And I mean, Kaiser White's a try-hard guy, and he's got leadership ability. The problem with him is that he's been vastly inconsistent. And, I mean, when we did the preview with Brett Coleman, he rightfully pointed out that our inside linebackers are not made to order for playing the likes of the Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. They need to be more physical. They need to be more, and also you need to cover. I mean, his PFF grade, now he's been coming on as a tackler lately, and his run defense has really picked up. And I got to give him a lot of credit for that. Ever since he was, Nick Rallis named his son after Kaiser. His running game defense has picked up all the way up to a 76.3 on PFF. His tackling has been average at 64.6. His coverage has been really suspect at 32.6, the worst grade in coverage of any of the second or third level players on the team, and that has been a bit of a liability. The Cardinals play a lot of zones, which drives me crazy, and he has not been effective, except occasionally, like the interception he got on McCarron at San Francisco. That was huge. I mean, love the guy, love his attitude, love his effort most of the time. But is he a quintessential NFL Mike linebacker? Is he the physical prototype? That's what I would question. But like Kyle said, he's got an in with the coaches. They love him. He does run the defense well, for getting everyone organized. And they say he's sharp as attack, pre-snap, and stuff like that. But his overall PFF grade is 50.8. And unfortunately, we've gotten an up and down performance from Mack Wilson, too. So neither one of them, both of them have failing cover grades. Mack Wilson's overall grade is 59.8. His biggest contribution has been blitzing. That's been awesome. He's got 3 sacks now and 15 pressures. So we like that part of him. But his tackling grade is a 57.6, and Kaiser's is a 64.6. So, that's average tackling at best, and you need better and more production. Although Kaiser led the team in tackles with 12 last week. So, and like I said, he's coming on. So let's just keep this, let's keep watching him the last few games. And I think if you do resign him, you kick him over to weak and get him out of Mike. That would be my thing.
It sounds like the answer might be to bring him and Mack Wilson back, because I think even contract they do have a decisions to the guarantees were in the first year. But it sounds like the answer is to probably bring both back and then maybe look to spend a day 2 draft pick potentially at the linebacker position. Maybe something like that.
Well, we have Owen Popo, who I think is, got the ingredients to be an outstanding weak uh, inside linebacker in the 34. So we got him. We'll get to Chris Barnes. He's been a really solid, you know, depth guy, and has come through in the clutch, not just this last week, but in other games. So, but yeah, I'm wondering, there's some free agents out there uh, that are intriguing to me, and I can talk about that at another time. That I think would be perfect pickups for the Cardinals, for their defense, and plus, Kaiser now is 29, so that's a factor as well. Will Hernandez, 30 years old, coming off an ACL.
I
Yay or
would
nay?
I would say yay. I would say definitely a yay.
Yeah. And I think it would have to be an incentive deal, which I think he'd be eager to sign. I think you do it on a 1-year deal now as a bounce back, prove it deal. Although knowing Will Hernandez, if knowing him, he's going to live up to that. But yes, I agree. Yay on Will Hernandez to come back. Matt Prater, 41, made
I
make
mean, at this point, I think they got to go with Ryland, right? They've found the succession plan at this point, and it's nothing against Prater. It's just they've found the succession plan for him at this point. So
right.
I guess I would say nay to bringing back Matt Prater.
Same. The thing is with Matt Prater too is he's been hurt. At his age, last couple of years, it seems like he misses a few games. What really hurt was in Cliffs last year when we got off to a pretty decent start, where we had a great chance to beat the Eagles, who wound up being almost undefeated that early in the season. And unfortunately, he was out, and Prater was out injured, and we ended up missing the game tying kick that would have sent it to overtime, and it wasn't that far of a kick. That was very frustrating. So yes, I mean, I think Chad Ryland has endeared himself to his teammates. He's kicked 3 game winners. He was leaking a little oil the last 3 games, but bounced back. Well, when you make 4 out of 5 field goals in the a few games back and miss one, it's hard to criticize him there. But he talk about bounce back games. He was 3 for 3 field goals. 2 of them were pretty long ones against the Patriots, and 3 for 3 extra points. So you know what? You're right. I think hanging on to Chad Ryland, plus you're going to save 2.7 million a year on the cap.
Which this is also my thought is if you're kicking 90% or better, you've got a job. If you're kicking 90, with kickers, it's almost as simple as that. If you're kicking at 90% or better, you've got a job in the NFL.
Right. Dennis Gardeck.
I would say yes. I definitely want to bring Gardeck back. I know he wasn't supposed to be the starter this year. That was a BJ Ojolari injury situation, right. But I mean, he's another one of those guys where, former special teams captain and, undrafted guy who goes from last guy on the practice squad to last guy on the roster to special teamer to backup to impact player. I know the torn ACL thing stinks, and I just even if it's only a 1-year contract, and even if it's for less than he's making now, it's just that's just someone you want to keep around the organization for as long as they're willing and as long as they are able to play on the field. I know physically there might be some questions coming back from the torn ACL, but I would want to keep Gardeck around as long as you can.
Same too. He's a high culture guy. one of the first guys in the building last to leave. He's played at a high level. We know his character. I think a similar deal to what Hernandez gets, an incentive deal on a 1-year comeback, and if you play well, you get rewarded type of deal, and then you can take it from there. Dennis is 31, so and he made counted as 3.3 million on the cap, which was a bargain coming in this year. So Kelvin Beachum.
I would say yes. I would want to bring Kelvin Beachum back. Obviously, it's a money question, but for a backup tackle at this point, I assume they bring back Jonah Williams next year. So Beach is again in that kind of swing role and injury replacement guy. I know someone could make the argument you could get younger at that position and draft earlier, but maybe someone with more versatility like could move to a guard position. But I think Beach has been around long enough and is a community pillar guy that you want to keep him around as long as you can. And he's been accepting of a backup tackle role for a number of years now, so it's not like this is a new situation where his role is declining necessarily. So yes, I would want to bring back Kelvin Beachum.
Ditto. Here's the thing. Cardinals drafted Christian Jones, love him at right tackle, really struggled in the preseason to convert over to left tackle to be a swing. With Beachum, you don't have that issue. His salary was only 2.57 this year. I think something similar. Give him 2, a little over 2 again. He'll be 30. He's 36 now, but he fits so well with what you're doing, and we know he still plays at a high level. Really hard to take him out, I thought, after the bye, because he's coming off a perfect game. No pressures, no sacks against a Jets defense that can really get after you. And was playing at a high level, and made the argument for continuity and for chemistry to keep him in there, even though there's no question at this point, Jonah Williams is the better player. And that was never the question, but Beach really has done great and would love to hang on to him. Evan Brown, the left guard, 29 years old.
I could go either way on that. They obviously drafted Adams with the hope that Adams would one day be the starting left guard.
Right.
But I could go either way on this one. I would. It would be nice to have him back, but if he left and signed a contract with a Jacksonville or a Tennessee or someone like that, I would be like, good for him. He's been very good for the Cardinals. So it's a bit of a cop out, but I kind of feel not indifferent, but just I could take it or leave it at this point.
Right. Yeah. His PFF grade is a 65.7. Pass blocking really good at 73.6. Run blocking 58.7. The issue that has come up recently now, Evan Brown is a strong man. He's a weightlifting guru. He's a bit of a leader in the clubhouse he fits in really great. And by and large, he's had a really solid season at left guard, and he has settled down that position that was once very weak. And getting tossed around. Like other left guards, he had his hands full with Leonard Williams. So that's something to look at. Now, I could also see him, spending some time at right guard if Will Hernandez is still, on the rehab. So his versatility, and he plays center. He's got, many starting starts at center in the NFL. So I think he's a valuable piece. But I also love, then you look at someone who, Will Hernandez was 69.3, 74.2 pass blocking, 66.0 run blocking. He's got it covered across the board. But the other guy that's been really fascinating and to watch this year and to see him achieve is Tristan Colon at right guard. Has been really, really good. I mean, his grades eclipse, they're the second best guard grades on the team, right behind Will. Will is 69.3. Tristan Colon is 68.4. Will was 74.2 pass blocking. Tristan 65.9, a little different. Will was 66.0 run blocking. Tristan was 65.4, equally the same, which is really saying something. And he's played in 9 games, and I thought acquitted himself really well. He's also versatile, can play center. That'd be a tough call. I think if I had to choose between Tristan Colon and at this point, Evan Brown, I think I'd go with the younger player. And they're both, versatile, can play. Also, I think Colon can play in a pinch right tackle. So that's going to be interesting to see decision. But I think there's value there. I think you're right. There's value to having both of them, and there's value to having the depth. Plus, you got a guy like John Gaines, the second, waiting in the wings. He's a guy you spent a 4th-round draft pick on. So, he could be in the Cardinals' plans for big 3rd season in the NFL.
And I know that the Cardinals have invested a lot in the offensive line since Monty Austin-Fort took over, and now we're seeing the fruits of that labor, right? There is not only is the offensive line at this point the strongest unit on the team, at least before Hernandez's injury, they were, 3rd in the league in blocking and all that. Now that you have continuity there, you also have depth, and I understand the fine line between that of the unit that was PJJ, Brown, Froholt, Hernandez, and Beecham, then Jonah Williams back and forth. That unit was truly excellent. It was probably the best unit on the field, and I understand wanting to reward that with bringing them back another year, while at the same time recognizing that Cologne might be the better player. You spent a 3rd-round pick on Isaiah Adams. You'd like for him to get some reps in games and things of those sorts, but it's a good problem to have, because how many times have we come here and said the Cardinals can't block this or that, and now they have star players and depth on the offensive line.
And have been a top 5 pass blocking unit all season long. So, and that's a breakthrough.
It was, I don't know if it's still true, but Kyler had taken the fewest sacks in the league. I haven't looked at it recently, but at one point he had taken the fewest sacks of any quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he only has 23, which in 14 games is real good. So no complaints there. Now you got 2 30-year-old plus wide receivers in Zay Jones and Zach Pascal.
I guess my instinct is to say no to both, although I understand, you need 5 or 6 receivers in this day and age, and I'd say the Cardinals probably have about 3, maybe 4 at this point. I know our guy from the preseason, Chisena, is over doing good things with, I want to say, the Panthers now, I want to say is where he's at. But so obviously that's not someone who's still waiting in the wings who, we were talking about in the preseason might have a roster spot. He got claimed and is doing his thing over in Carolina at this point. And I'm guessing Carolina maybe brings him back. But I guess my instinct is to say no to both, although I don't want to just say no without having a replacement in the wings for either of them.
Well, I think the Cardinals need to add speed at the position, and neither Zay Jones nor Zach Pascal are speed merchants. They're possession guys. And then we have the issue of Greg Dortch, who, by the way, is still going to be just an RFA. So a restricted free agent, which means the Cardinals would just have to put in a bid for him. And I think, like a first round bid, a second round bid, or, something like that. And they can retain him. And I think they probably will. So you got Dortch probably coming, more than likely coming back. Although Dortch has been of a mystery this year. They finally got him on track a little bit against the Patriots. It really showed up, and want to see more. Give us more of that. Feed the Dortch more than they've been doing. So, but I think what you're going to see from the Cardinals is maybe trying to add a slot receiver with a little bit bigger size to go with Dortch, and then I think a speed burner to add to the offense could be really helpful too. So I think they're gonna address that a little bit. I'm just going to quickly go through the rest, and because we want to get to another topic, but Kairis Tonga, I liked. He's 29. Oh, by the way, together Jones and Pascal counted $5 million this year against the cap, and have done really little to nothing at the position. Pascal is one of our better special teams players, so you're getting value there, but just an FYI on that. So Cologne, yes. Tonga, yes. Aaron Bruder, yes. Guy's still great. I mean, he's 35, but he wants to still play here, which I think he probably does. I'd do it. LJ Collier, I'd say yes. He's 30 now, but he's making some strides, and I don't think he'll break the bank. His salary this year was 1.29. I think you can get him at a good salary. Chris Barnes, I say yes. He was 1.19 million this year. I think you can get him at something similar. He's good depth piece, and man, that tackle on Sunday was fantastic. Baron Browning, yes. I don't think he's going to cost you much. I think an incentive deal, if he doesn't want to make a longer term deal, thinking he could bet on himself. He's only 26 years old. He has a good sack. He's got 10 pressures now too in like 4 games, last 4 games. So I mean, he's making some noise. Julian Aquara, he's 28, maybe. He made some pretty good plays last week, but I think they're going to address that position and get it stronger up at the top end. So I don't know if Aquara will fit in. Naquan Jones, I've really liked the defensive tackle. So too, I really love Roy Lopez. Love to see both of those guys back. I don't think they'll be that expensive. They're both. Naquan is 27. Roy Lopez is 28. Jesse Lucchetta is a restricted free agent. They will bring him back. So is Joey Blunt. They will bring him back. Carter O'Donnell has been injured. He's a restricted free agent. They might want to keep him because he's got tackle versatility. But he'd be at a minimum salary. Victor Dimukeje might be best for him to test the waters somewhere else. He just sort of still a back end sub. And he's 26 years old, and Travis Vokalek is an exclusive rights free agent, so he's coming back. Angelo Blackson played 1 game, played well, but then got injured. So, I mean, I think you could have him in the wings, but would be a minimum salary guy. And Marcus Bailey had some issues, so I don't see him coming back. So that's that. The priorities, excuse me, for me would be in this group, the way that I would rank them would be you want to see Hernandez and Gardeck back on incentive deals, which he should be able to do. But I would put the priority in on the offensive line, or Beecham and Cologne and Will Hernandez, and maybe bring in Evan Brown back as well, because he having the depth there with the continuity is an attractive thing, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, and I think you're right, Kyle. I think that Jonah Williams is certainly coming back to be the starter right tackle next year. So you got your tackles coming back, and then you've got an array of guards. You've got your center signed up longer term. So you've got guard fits in there with Isaiah Adams, younger players, plus guys you can re-sign, and you've got John um, John Gaines the second in for depth as well, and maybe he emerges at a timely occasion on a timely occasion. So yeah, there's that. So great to see the Cardinals trying to reward their core players and to give players incentives. And I've been wanting to talk about this. I was going to write an article, but I want to save it for here, because a question that I've been sort of thinking over and over in my head recently has been, who is the greater enigma, Kyler Murray or Jonathan Gannon? Because they're both in certain ways enigmatic. On the bright side, we've seen great things happen with both of them. That Rams game was phenomenal. I mean, and the 4-game winning streak, very well coached. Kyler was playing probably his best football since the first half of 2021. And, so things were cranking. But then since the bye week, it's been a real disappointment from both of them. The team wasn't quite as well prepared, and it's particularly against a divisional rival. They just didn't stand up to the Seahawks in either game, and Kyler was kind of a mess in both of those games, which looked so different than what he was looking before the bye. Whatever Kyler did during the bye didn't work. He said he was going to be locked in, but whatever he did didn't work. And it looks to me like, I know he has a cold now, but looks to me like he doesn't look as, maintained in his shape as he was, because part of his success this year, in my opinion, is how much in tip-top shape he's been. And it's really helped him ascend as a runner too, and running the offense. So, but I mean, on the other side, there's just some mind-boggling things that, why is Kyler this inconsistent 6 years in? How can he be so good in some games and then just so off the mark and looking like he's already defeated in other games? And how is he making these just boneheaded throwaway interceptions? Fortunately, one got called back at a key time in last week's game, because it could have given that goal line stand right back to the Patriots. And fortunately, and it was the right call. It was a helmet to helmet, and that cannot happen without a penalty, and shouldn't have. But what shouldn't have happened is Kyler panicking and throwing it up there like he did and like he has been doing. So, it makes you wonder. And then with Gannon, here was something that was so curious. So I'm sitting there watching the game Sunday, and almost immediately the CBS reporters report that they have an pregame interview with Budda Baker, of all people. And Buddha's, they were asking him, what do you do to shake off, the last 3 weeks? And Buddha immediately said, "Oh yeah, well, Jonathan Gannon gave us some Monday off." And I'm like, you cannot be serious. Um, I mean, we just had a bye week. We're playing our worst football of the season. I mean, the Vikings game was great for 3 quarters, and this is where I think it bit Gannon in the butt, because his decision making in the fourth quarter of the Vikings game with a lead was really passive. And in retrospect, I think it did not give the Cardinals the best chance to win. And I think, so he says the next week after that Vikings game, what's the tenor among the players? He said they're pissed off. And then I started to wonder, yeah, they're probably pissed off at Gannon. I mean, if I was a member of that defense, if I was Budda Baker, and I'm in that defense, and your defense is being called to play these porous zones where nobody's covering Justin Jefferson, especially on a game deciding fourth down, you have to look around and go, what the frick? I mean, now certainly they're not coached like that necessarily to leave guys wide open, but they've been doing it all year. They're not a good zone defense. They're not well instructed. They don't run it right. They don't run it well. I mean, the other thing was mystifying to me on that play was that Baron Browning wasn't rushing the passer. He was at the inside linebacker spot and nowhere near Justin Jefferson until it was too late. Why are you doing that there? I mean, why don't you have him rushing? He's your speediest rusher. It's just mind-boggling to me. So, I mean, I was pissed off again, and I don't know if you were too. But I mean, he's a young coach, trying to find his way. He tends to be overly conservative against better teams, and I don't think that's what you got to play like Kenny Winningham does at ASU. You got to play like you have house money. You got to be unpredictable. You got to do things that shock and awe. Put it that way, and you got to believe in your quarterback. I mean, when you're 4th and 3. The other thing that pissed me off about Gannon was last week was they had a great completion to Marvin Harrison Jr. You're trying to get him on track and get him in groove, and it created a 2nd and 1, but he takes a 5-yard penalty and a first down instead. What, you can't get 1 yard on the next play? And Marvin gets 18 yards or whatever it was. So, it was 12. It was over 10 yards. It was a great play. So, stuff like that. It's just the passive aggressiveness that is curious. And with Kyler, you just wonder how he's so mercurial still, and how he's so, emotionally volatile still. It shows up on the sidelines and the moping and the, hanging his head, draping a towel over his head. And, as a leader of a football team, you owe it to your teammates to give them a better look. Like, okay, my bad. We're going to come after him. We're going to get him. That type of thing. And the other thing that struck me that I've been trying to fight off about Jonathan Gannon and Kyler from ever since it happened is both of them committed egregiously poor decisions that no coach or player should ever do. We saw it last week with Devondre Campbell refusing to go back in and actually leaving the field. So if you're not going to go back in, it doesn't matter whether you're on the field or not. Kyler did that in the most important game the Cardinals have had since the Bruce Arians heydays. And you just, if you look at the way that the 49ers players reacted to Devondre Campbell, well, I guarantee you, and I know there are people who think it's no big deal. I guarantee you, if you had been able to interview the Cardinals players, in that context, after the Rams playoff loss, you would have heard similar things. Because every football player knows you do not, it's like a band of brothers. You do not quit on your brothers. And then Kyler, scrubbed the socials and then lied about it, saying, yeah, it's just a 24-year-old kid doing shit, tried to cover it up. And then you have Gannon, selling his team short, accepting a tampering violation during the Super Bowl weeks. And people here still think that's no big deal. And I don't understand. I know we live in a world now where, a convicted rapist is going to be our president again. I know we live in a world where somehow you can make excuses for people. But you have to say, what if it happens to you? I mean, if this were in reverse and it was Cardinals in the playoffs, and one of their, your defensive coordinator, who's already just said to you, I'm coming back for next year, which was, what he said to the Eagles fans on national TV following their win over the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. I mean, it's an ultimate betrayal to the team on both counts. So I mean, part of this, and so I'll take it one more step further, and I'm gonna kick this over to get Kyle's reactions. But here's one step further. So you got a coach who, got caught tampering, who then lied about it to try to cover it up, who cost the team a third round draft pick, or swap of third rounders, which from beginning of the round to the end of the round, which is a large gap. Then coming into a situation where he's touting, saying that he wouldn't take the job if Kyler Murray weren't the quarterback. At a time when the locker room was never more divided about Kyler Murray. And I think it was so totally swung against him, from what I've heard from my sources who are privy to what was going on in the locker room. Doubling down on Kyler without, even, there's ways to do that. You could come in and say, you know what, I'm going to evaluate everyone on the field and what they're doing in the offseason, and everything's open to competition, and I'm not gonna hook my wagon to anyone in particular yet. I think if he had done that, it would have saved a lot of angst and a lot of poor decisions that were made along the way, personnel wise, in my opinion, with being automatically enamored with players that, that you might want to check out first before, like might want to look under the hood before you buy the car. So that always concerned me because, and here's the thing that bothers me now is that, maybe that was mandated by Bidwell, and maybe that's why, Dan Quinn wouldn't take the job when he was rushed in for a second interview. Maybe there were those quid pro quos that come with Bidwellian contracts and things you're made to do. And one of them might have been very clearly, Kyler Murray's going to be the quarterback, and we got to build him up, and you got to come in from day one and say that. But I'm not sure that was the case necessarily. I think that, but if a coach is willing to, blindly, a first-year head coach is willing to blindly hitch your wagon to a player who's so divisive, and he's still divisive. I mean, there's no question about it, unfortunately, because he's, he does some things you wouldn't expect out of a 6-year quarterback, and then at the other side, he awes you in ways you hope for a six-year quarterback. But to put your reputation on that coming in, I'm sure there were play, and then to make it like, well, if you're not with me, you're going to get cut, or if that was a part of the deal, which is crazy to me. I mean, Kelvin Beachum came out publicly and they re-signed him, but somebody had to say it, and Kelvin Beachum said it well and with tact and with hope that Kyler would get the message. And in certain ways, Kyler did. In a lot of ways, he did. And we got to give him credit for that, for all the things he's done well since he came back. But, he's still enigmatic. But Gannon so the question is now, could Gannon ever move on from Kyler Murray? How could he? I mean, if he wouldn't take the job if Kyler wasn't the quarterback, I mean, it's kind of like he's locked into Kyler, and maybe the two of them are. And maybe he'll learn like Cliff did, that maybe he isn't that great for job security. If he struggles in big games and can't get you where you want to go. I don't think Drew Petzing is the least bit enigmatic. He has been rock solid in what he wants and how he's coached it from the beginning. And the best thing he ever said all year, probably any Cardinal coach said, when Marvin was struggling one game and the next game had a good game, the press asked him, well, what'd you do different? And Drew Petzing said, nothing. We executed better. Drew Petzing's not going to change his offense for anyone. It is what it is. And he's upfront about what he wants. And Nick Roush has made tremendous strides in year 2. I don't find him the least bit enigmatic at all. I think he too is creative and innovative. I'm wondering though at times whether he gets told to play those zones by Jonathan Gannon. Because Gannon said the game end plan in Minnesota defensively he had in mind. And boy, if the plan was to play prevent defense down, clinging to a 6-point lead late in the fourth quarter, something's got to shake on that. So, Kyle, given what I've said and what you've seen, who is more enigmatic or the greater enigma, if you had to decide, Kyler Murray or Jonathan Gannon?
All right, let's talk this out, because you've been talking for, gosh, it's almost 3 years now about the infamous Kyler Murray not going into the game at the end of the playoffs, and I hadn't considered that with the Devondre Campbell situation, since Devondre Campbell happened 6 days ago, and you brought up a great point, which is like, you know what? There are a lot of similarities there between those two incidents, and I think the difference was level of production. Devondre Campbell was a not really big part of this season. He wasn't there for any of the previous 49er championship runs. He wasn't one of those core locker room guys in a sense, in the way that the quarterback of the team and the quarterback of a playoff team is or was during that 2021 season. But also at the same time, there were so many similarities there. So I thought that was interesting to bring up there, in terms of that enigma, because it was kind of the same type of situation there. For the Gannon of it all, I didn't hear about the not having practice portion of the Budda Baker interview, so that was just kind of an interesting tidbit. I don't know if that's normal or expected. It's harder to take after a loss, I suppose, but
Can I
different situations. Yeah.
Can I jump right in on that? I don't want to interrupt you necessarily, but
go for it.
I just want to add. Okay, here's where it does not make any sense to me. Because, and I should have said this when I was making my argument, and I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't make it clear. Okay. They had the bye week 3 weeks ago, and whatever happened over the bye week, they couldn't get a carryover. So now you're coming out of, and here's the thing that was really mystifying. So not only does Gannon call off practice last Monday, in the pressers with Gannon and the two coordinators, Petzing and Rallis, all three of them focused their pressers on the fact, for the first time since they've arrived on the coaching staff, that the Cardinals did not play with strong enough effort or hustle or aggressiveness and all those key words that they use. And I'm thinking to myself, which was true. I mean, that second Seattle game was a clunker. I mean, they looked demoralized. And I think it's because they were pissed off again and thinking, like, you're not giving us a good enough chance to win games. So, I that's the way I took it. And maybe I'm wrong, but that was a demoralized football team. And I don't think it was from the first Seahawks game necessarily, but it was the manner in which they lost at Minnesota. When you have a head coach who's saying, he wants killers as players and coaches like a softie down the stretch of a winnable game, it's, that's why he's an enigma. I mean, at some point you got to teach your team how to win, and being passive aggressive in all those decisions, not going for it on 4th and 3, up 3 points, where if you get the touchdown, the game's over. Calling a prevent defense, leaving a guy like Justin Jefferson wide open and making it so easy for the Vikings just march right down and score. And then on the touchdown, having a wide open running back, not guarded by anyone, was embarrassing. And I wouldn't blame the players if they, were like looking at that and going, like, what the frick is this guy doing? I mean, why is he talking to us about all this, killer talk when he doesn't have it himself? So how then do you come out of a game where now, for the first time as coaches, you're questioning your players' effort and then give them a day off? Now, here's my theory. The only thing that makes sense to me is he wanted to get back in their good graces. Is that if I give them the day off, they'll celebrate that, and maybe that'll take maybe that ease a little bit of the tension here, and then we can get on to the business of playing the Patriots. Because otherwise, and look at the precedent this sets too, is that if your team lacks effort, if you ever say that and ever accuse them of that, what coach gives them a day off? I mean, and the precedent of that is that, well, we can stink and he'll still give us a day off. I mean, that's so. When I was talking about day offs, that context came in. I'll tell you this, Kyle. If we had lost to the Patriots, and I said this at the beginning of the game, if we had lost to the Patriots, and I knew that Gannon, who also canceled 2 of the 3 days on the field in mini camps, he's been, trying to be a champion for giving the players time off, way more than any coach I've ever seen. I mean, a Victory Monday day off doesn't bother me, at all, because it's a reward. In this case, you're being rewarded for lack of effort. How does that work?
So here's,
yeah.
I guess in that respect, if I had to answer your question, I guess I'd lean Gannon, because I would add on to it. I think coaches are already conservative enough when it comes to play calling, 4th downs, using timeouts. I think coaches actively do damage against themselves by having conservative choices. When you're the Cardinals and the strength of your team is your offense and the strength of your team is your ability to move the ball down the field, it double conflates it, because the analytics and numbers and nerd stuff suggests that coaches are already too conservative before you even get into play calling and fourth downs and things of those sorts. So I guess in that sense, you're not putting your team in the best position to succeed. I guess I agree with your point on the day off. The only part that I pause on is I don't instinctively conflate days off to reward versus punishment. Sometimes that is what it's about, but it doesn't always have to be reward versus punishment in terms of rest and time off, especially during the course of a long football season. That was the only part I pause on and say I don't know if it's conflating days off to reward or days off to everybody's exhausted, everyone is mentally drained, and this will actually do good for us to hit the reset button. I don't know exactly the context behind that, but I think to the greater point, yeah, I don't think at times Gannon puts the team in the best position to succeed, and sometimes that's also Rallis. I know that Gannon is the de facto defensive play caller and schemer and things of those sorts, but I just feel like at times the defense has been so up and down this year and their rotations have been so sporadic in terms of who's been on the field and who hasn't been on the field that I just don't feel like they're putting the defense in the best position to succeed. And I can't put it all on the players because I've seen them be an elite defensive unit at times this season. And and we've seen rotations succeed, and then they go back to Murphy Bunting, or they pull Taylor Demerson out for games at a time, or are doing this weird rotation of linebackers for wrong possessions, and I don't. I have trouble saying that at times the defensive unit is always put in the best position to succeed before you get into some of the conservative play calling stuff. So I guess I'm talking through it. I guess I would lean Gannon in that sense. It's tough to swallow because they haven't been terrible this year, but we were also here 3 weeks ago talking about what it would take to win the NFC West, and now winning the NFC West is what it's going to take to get into the playoffs, and here we are, kind of just in it but not really in it because they're going to need help to get to the playoffs. So I don't know, it's hard to conflate what the expectations were going into the season versus where the team is now, and I think they could be better, but they're also in a good spot, so it's hard to pin down one or the other. But I guess just talking through it here, I guess I would I support the assertion with Gannon to what you were talking about before, particularly with those 3 points that we kind of have been talking about for the last few minutes.
Do you think that Gannon could, upon further review, decide, you know what, we need a different kind of quarterback for Drew Petzing's offense? Or do you think that Gannon and Murray are joined at the hip?
It's gonna be hard to sell at this point, because even if you have a quarterback who might be a better fit, I mean, Kyler Murray's been very good. I won't say great, but Kyler Murray's been very good in the, what is it now, 6 last year plus 13 games that they've played, or 14 games now. So 20 games in the system. Kyler Murray has a sample size that would indicate he's a very good quarterback. He's I think he's top 10 in passer rating right now. But the tough part of it is he's also been healthy this year, which is a tremendous plus. This is the first time he's played 14 consecutive games in a season in his entire career, which you'll take from the Cardinals. A big part of that is offensive line help, and I give Austin Fort credit for that in saying offensive line needs to be better, investing resources in it, starting to see some of those results. It's like I said last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about the Petzing versus Kyler thing, is there's no reason to make a move just to say you made a move at this point. I mean, the solution might be around the edges. I don't know exactly what the solution is, but or to take that next step. But I don't think you have to make a big picture change just to say you made a big picture change, especially going into year three, which is for all intents and purposes the make it or break it year. I think for better or for worse, Gannon's bread is buttered with Kyler Murray in terms of whether they're going to get back to the playoffs and get Gannon that second contract, which is going to have to come after year three because he's on a 4-year contract. And I would be surprised if they go into the contract year without some sort of resolution, even if it's just a 1-year extension. I
Right.
would be surprised, but I think for better or for worse, his bread is buttered with Kyler at least next. Maybe you can come back and say we held up our. If for some reason the goes 9-8, the offense takes a step back. Maybe you come back and to Bidwell and say, I've done this, this, and this. What I need is the freedom to make a quarterback change. Um, maybe there's a set of circumstances where that's the case, but I do think for better or for worse, they're joined at the hip.
Yeah, and that concerns me because I said it from the beginning, and I'll say it again. This is not the right offense for Kyler Murray. It's just not. Okay. So you're going to force a round hole into a square peg. This is what you're going to get, the ups and downs. You know, when I watch Jaden Daniels in Cliff Kingsbury's offense, I see a guy smiling. I see a guy totally relaxed. I see a guy delivering the ball now and not late. I see just a total different command than what I saw with Kyler and Cliff's offense. And quite frankly, I saw the same kind of calm and precision from Colt McCoy when he beat the Seahawks, which was the last time we'd beaten the Seahawks. And it was in Seattle, and he beat the 49ers in San Francisco. And those 2 wins helped get us to the playoffs because I don't think with either one of them we would have gotten there because of the fallout and struggles that Kyler had down the stretch and the team had, not just Kyler, but the team as well, being without J.J. Watt. But in games they were still favored to win. They were losing. The Colts game on Christmas, the agonizing Seahawks game at the end of the year, which you win that game, you win the NFC West. And the Seahawks had nothing to play for, et cetera. So here's the dilemma: is it, and everyone's, and I predicted this too, is that you're going to draft a Marvin Harrison Jr. Is this the right offense for him? And how much of a distraction is this going to be? It's going to be like the subplot every game. Well, what did Marvin do? It's like the added focus, and the focus of that, taking the eye off of what Petzing does best. And so what I want to know is, and we'll probably see this in some other team that hires him as a coordinator, and he can add his own personnel. I want to see a bigger, stronger, pocket-oriented quarterback in his system who can routinely make the throws over the middle and play action that the offense requires and that the offense naturally creates. And with Kyler, there's limitations to that, as we all know. And I don't know if he could ever sort of fit that. He's never going to be a stand in there and deliver and take the punishment quarterback. It's never going to happen, at least on a consistent basis. And, that's why when I was watching, last 2 weeks, watching Sam Darnold, who, by the way, is a free agent, and, people are sold on him going back to Minnesota. Maybe they don't offer him the kind of money he'll want. But that's a guy in our offense who stands in there and takes a licking and keeps on ticking, and he delivers over the middle really well. I look at that and say, if you put a quarterback like that within Petzing's offense, you got tough matching tough. And the whole philosophy is smash mouth, tough, come at you. Everyone's a baller, everyone's tough. I'm not saying Kyler isn't a baller, but he's, in his own way he is, but also in his own way he's not, because he panics too much, and he gets jittery too much. And at this point, after 6 years, you wonder, and people just want to keep blaming his coaches, but I don't know if any coach can coach him out of that, without requiring him to do things he does not want to do. So, that's why Kyler's an enigma, but I think it compounds the situation that he's in an offense that, quite frankly, doesn't suit him as well as, ironically, Cliff's and other offenses that he's run super well his whole life, playing out of a spread and trying to exploit mismatches out of a spread, and playing combo routes on both sides of the field, and it stretches the field out and gives him greater opportunities to run, which when he does as well as everyone but Lamar Jackson. So that's the frustration I'm feeling, is that I don't think you've got a fit here, with the quarterback and the offense, to make the quarterback feel completely at home and to make the coordinator feel completely at home. Like, this is a real good match. I think Petzing's been trying to make it work as well as he can. I think Kyler has been trying to make it work as well as he can. And, but we're seeing the frustrations of it right now. And the whole focus on Marvin Harrison Jr., which, it's, in a way, it's detracting and taking away from what the offense can do. And, if the team wins, I don't care if he gets thrown to once, nor should anybody else. I mean, what I did love about Marvin last week is his blocking has really picked up, and he made some good blocks, like on the Connor long run, the 35-yard run. Marvin made a good block. Another run that came his way when he was on that side, he made a good block. He's putting, and he's a developing prospect with, upside talent, without a doubt. And it's going to take him a while to, get his sea legs, if you will. But, and I think you're going to see potentially a huge growth between this year and next. But I think that and here's what's enigmatic to me is with Monty Ossenford. He vowed to sync up this whole thing, like get it all in sync. And, I mean, if you're syncing up an offense for Kyler, is this the offense for Kyler? I mean, seriously? So anyway, I don't blame Petzing. He's been consistent from day one, and he's been told to be consistent. That's who they hired. This is what they wanted. They wanted a Stefanski-like offense with a big bruising running back and a big, strong zone running team, and they've got that, and they're really good at it. And they've got a tight end who makes it fantastic. But now, the passing game for both Kyler last year and this year has been adequate at best. I mean, people are getting excited about 220 yards of offense in the air. And, Kyler's so much more capable than that. And we've known that from past years. I mean, these are down numbers in terms of production. You're also talking about Kyler Murray healthy for 14 weeks, and he has 15 passing touchdowns? This is Kyler Murray. I mean, let's be real. That's like one a game. Seriously? And Trey McBride has 0? And part of the reason why he has 0 is they don't throw him. They don't run him into the end zone. Everything's below the end zone. Like even that shovel pass. Why not ISO him out like a Gronk and run a fade with him or a double move? like a whip route with him. It's not that hard. Who's going to be covering him? A linebacker, a safety? They're going to switch the top corner. I like him against any top corner too. We can box him out. So it's frustrating because the offense it's been good, but it's not great, and it's not clicking on all levels. Which at this time of year you want it to be. The way the Vikings is, the way other the Lions, the Bills, the big time teams, the Bills, the Lions had a bit of a step back, but look at the Packers, what they pasted on Seattle in Seattle. You want to know you have an offense that can also come from behind, and even the CBS announcers admitted the Cardinals are not built to be a come from behind passing offense. I mean, in today's NFL, don't you have to be kind of built that way to win? I mean, look at Mahomes, look at the teams that have won. So, that's my question. I mean, who's more enigmatic? I don't know how to answer that yet because they both mystify me. But I'd love to see them more on the same page. Is my point. And if they're going to keep Kyler, I don't know if it means, sending Drew Petzing to passing game clinics and opening this offense up and making it different. I mean, they just re-signed James Conner for 2 years, which means they're doubling down. They did all this drafting in the third round to double down on it. But I'd like to I'd be so curious to see a different style of quarterback that fits the style of the offense, or an offense that fits Kyler Murray better, so that we can be a come from behind team anytime we need to. So there's my thing. And thank you, Kyle, for answering so well and honestly. And so, final thoughts?
Well, it's still a bit of a long shot going forward, but they've got winnable games coming. I'm just excited to see what they do now with not backs up against the wall in terms of like the blueprint, because they've had a very successful season, but probably a lot of the big changes are going to come this offseason in terms of evolving to try and get from very good to great, especially on offense. And maybe that involves concessions on both sides. Maybe that involves Kyler Murray conceding a little bit here, Drew Petzing conceding a little bit here. Because I said from the beginning, the best coaches know how to evolve they are doing to their personnel. Sean McVay, one of the best ever at evolving what he does on offense based on personnel. So you concede a little bit here, concede a little bit there. Mostly the personnel thing is the Kyler, Marvin Harrison, and Michael Wilson thing, which is, you've got these outside passing threats that are not slot guys. So let's see if we evolve our offense a little bit to accommodate for them, and maybe that accommodates them moving to the slot more, maybe bring in another slot receiver, who knows. And maybe it's just some concessions on both sides to try and help make the offense great, because they have a great running game, great pass blocking, and a great tight end. And those are the things that will carry over beyond this season. And that is good to have, because that gives me faith that they will take a big step. They will next season, because they have those things in place, and those things have been great all season long, and for the most part, all the way through the Drew Petzing era. So that gives me faith that they won't take a giant step back next year. How do they get from very good to great? We'll see. Maybe they do it in the next 3 games, but I think these are probably bigger picture questions to answer than when you're trying to game plan for Bryce Young during the week. I think you kind of have to take a step back to look at some of those things. But we'll see. The Cardinals are still in a very interesting and envious position right now, which is it's not a complete failure by any stretch of the imagination. They've seen the progress. They have the core of their team, and we'll see what they do with it. The playoffs are still a long shot right now, but it's also not out of the question. And they have to win this week. If it's going to be any kind of question, they have to win this game this week. Otherwise, it is dead to rights.
Right. And it's versus the Panthers, who, like the Seahawks, I mean, you have to go back a long way to remember the last time the Cardinals beat the Panthers. No matter what the year and who was good and who wasn't, Panthers have, done a number on the Cardinals.
The Panthers game a few years ago was the beginning of the downfall, I would say, for the Cardinals, when Cam Newton came in off the street and scored the touchdown and was yelling, "I'm back," and everything. That was kind of the beginning of the fall of grace for the Cardinals.
Oh, interesting you put it in that perspective. Yeah, that was an awful game. But yeah, they got to take care of business and get out there. And this Panthers team has been playing better lately. They had a clunker versus the Cowboys, but otherwise they've been in close games. And the Cardinals have to try to get on top and stay on top, in my opinion, and handle their business out there, because I love their mantra of 1-0. That's the only way to play this game. And, all the players are talking it and believing in it and putting all their effort into it. Hopefully, we won't hear questions about effort and energy and motor, which Nick Rallis was saying he didn't see a couple of weeks ago, was kind of motor that you need in players to win. Yeah, the Cardinals are playing meaningful football. I'm really grateful for that. This game on Sunday has meaning. It's this late in the season. There are a lot of things for this team to prove, and certain players on this team to prove, particularly down a stretch of a season. So it bears for interesting watching, and it's good to have the Cardinals in it, and and trying to go 1-0 to stay in it, and then who knows? So yeah, it's a 1:00 game, and then so that's all that matters right now. I'm not even going to peek. I'm not even going to talk about any other games. That's all that matters. So in the interim, thank you all for chiming in, and listening and reacting. Please, I welcome you to try to answer the question that Kyle and I tried to answer here, both on the YouTube thread and at the Rivet Bench of the Birds. I mean, to you, who is a greater enigma? Is it Murray or Gannon? And what can they do together to, sort of erase, become more crystal clear and aligned as to who they are and what they're bringing to the table, and what kind of things we can expect from them, particularly in close games late in the season that matter. So until then, may the red rain shower down on you into the red sea. Red rain.